Hello and welcome. It's TLB time, and this time it's a tutorial. The first tutorial that we have done so far, but we may come up with others. This time I'm going to talk about how to build a sealed deck. And I'm just going to go through the steps that I usually follow, and hopefully it can help players that are new to sealed. Yeah, so here I have opened the pool, and I'm usually starting off by looking at the rares, just to see if I have any big bombs, because sealed is overall a pretty slow format. There are exceptions, but usually, and then therefore you go through lengths to try to play your bombs, because it's a good way to win, to be able to play your bombs. And let's start by looking at this pool. Okay, so we have Munda's Vanguard, which is a very good card, usually something you want to play when you open a sealed pool. We also have Planar Outburst, another type of bomb, but it's very much a bomb. A sweeper that could also be awakened. This is more of a synergy based card, so if we have a lot of allies and maybe the few good equipments, it might be a bomb, but for now it's not pulling me into white or anything. Thought Not Seer, yeah, I will consider that a bomb. It's a 4/4 for 4, which also thought seizes your opponent, which is good. Vile Redeemer is not a bomb card, but it's fine, and I will always play it in a green deck. So looks pretty heavy white just looking at the bombs, the rares, but we have to also in this format, because in some formats there are gold cards, and even though they are uncommon, some of them, they're also considered bombs often. So I'm going to look at the okay, we only had one, and it's red-green, so yeah, not the bombiest of gold cards, and we don't see a lot of them. But if we play red-green, we're obviously going to play it. So after looking at the rares and now the gold cards, I might also I might move on to actually looking at the colors. And in the top row you can see how many cards you have total in the sealed pool, and they can be, usually they're pretty evenly distributed, but they can also be unbalanced. And if you look at this, you see that red has 16 cards, white has 15, and then green, black and blue are slightly behind with 13 and 12. And since we know that we had a lot of white bombs, we might start off by trying to build something with white. And it also looks like it could be a deep color for us, so I think I'm going to start to look at the white playable. And first I'm just going to skim through and see if I really see a lot of good playables. I mean, we have like 2 for 2 in sealed is not generally that good. A lot of Mighty Leaps, I don't like those. Sky Climber is fine, better in Elidex. We have Sheer Drop, which could be playable. Ghostly Sentinel is fine. And Munda's Vanguard is the bomb we were talking about. And the Planar Outburst, which goes better in a control deck, but if you play white, you probably play it just because it can be such a good card. But not super excited with white here. Looking at blue, we have Negate, 2 Containment Membranes, which I like. Double Cultivator Drone, which I also like. Grip of the Royal, sweep away some tempo cards. Yeah, not super good, but there are some good cards in blue too. Black, we see Unnatural Endurance, which is fine. Calastra Healer if we manage to build an alley deck of some sort. We have some colorless cards that are pretty aggressive, even though Slaughter Drone is actually pretty fine in most decks, since it can get Death Touch and thereby trading with larger creatures. Vampire Envoy is a playable you always play. Skitterskin more aggro. And then some Alice actually, and the Soothsayer, which I think is pretty good. Red, the biggest pile, but let's see. Red is not that good in this particular seed format just because it's very aggro, but we have some 2-drops, some Alice, which we have to remember, and then some good removal. Yeah, and actually some good the embodiment and the maw. So looking at this, red has a lot of playables if you want to go more aggro, and green looks probably like our worst color in this particular pool. Stalking Drone is fine, Wild Redeemer is fine, I guess Mantis can be okay, and then we have 2 5/4s, but not much else, so probably not playing green. So this was just a quick look at the colors, but I'm going to look at the mana base now just to see if we have good lands for potential splashes and so on. Blighted Woodland is good if you are green, because then you can enable splashing. Crumbling Vestige is like better than a waste if you want to play a lot of colorless, because it actually fixes color when you play it. We have a black-red dual. We have a blue-green dual that's also a manland, which you always play if you are in those colors. Spawning Bed again, colorless mana with upside, and then not much else. And lastly, I'm just also going to look at the colorless cards. We have a lot of ways to get colorless mana with the Hedron Crawlers and Sears Lantern, and we also have Kozilek's Channeler and another bomb card, if you want to call it that, in Breaker of Armies. That's a very good finisher in Sealed. And if you think it's hard to judge by looking at all those cards together, you could actually go color by color and put down all the cards that would pull you towards that color. And you can also go you can start by taking the cards that are a bit above playable, I guess. And there in white we have Munda's the Vanguard, the Planar Outburst. And if we take like playables that you probably would play, you could try to see if this Stonehaven guy is something to consider. Sheer Drop, Ghostly Sentinel, and I guess the Sky Climber is also fine. Otherwise, I think the other cards are more conditional and depending on what type of deck. So we have 2 bombs that we would really like to play and like 4 more playables. Blue, you have Negate as a playable. It's actually good in Sealed. Containment Membrane that are removal, so I'm going to put them here. They're very good. Cultivator Drone is also above playable, I think, if you have a colorless theme, but first I'm just putting them with regular playables. I think Grip of the Royal is fine, Sweep Away can be fine, and the Flyer also. So 2 removal spells, but more, I think, playables. You could have reason for some more playables here, but just not knowing what we're going to play, this is what I'm putting down. Black, we have Slaughter Drone, Calastra Healer is borderline. That's more based, that's only if you have a lot of allies. Vampire Envoy, you're always going to play. Myers Malice, I think you're playing in Sealed. I guess you could move down Endurance and Soothsayer. And we have Chain Mage and maybe Skitterskin. We have Dominated Drone, depending on what type of deck we're going to end up with. And in red, I guess Seida's Commando is fine, even though it's a 2-drop, because it has first strike. So that's actually pretty good. And I'm going to put Devour over there and Touch of the Void just because removal is good. Embodiment is also above playable. We have Maw we have another Maw, and I think On the Champion is actually fine in red too. Valakut Predator is a good card. Yeah, red had a lot of playables and actually 2 good removal spells, and the embodiment I think is above playable. You could also see maybe if you want another aggro card, you have the 2/1 Immobilizer and Cohort. So yeah, there are some decent cards in red. And green I'm actually not going to put down because I already see that there are like 2 cards I would consider playing. Colorless though, where we have Crawler, another Crawler, which are fine in a lot of decks. Lantern with the Scry I think is important. And the Breaker is, depending on the deck, some sort of bomb. So yeah, looking at this makes me a bit sad, because we have 2 good bombs in white, but white doesn't look like a very deep color in this pool. So if I throw those away, we have a few decent blue cards, some black and more red. So now it's time to try to decide what deck to start trying to build. And since we have a lot of good colorless cards and a lot of good ramp, I would like to try to use the colorless theme as a base and build one deck from there, because I think you usually have time to build one deck, and then hopefully you have time to build an alternative, and you can compare and also have actually the other deck maybe as a backup, even if you choose the first one, or vice versa. So I'm just going to start off by putting out something that uses the colorless base and see how that looks. So yeah, the base looks like this. We have all the ramp and we have the breaker of armies. And we could, for this deck, put in the lands as well. And yeah, and the Thought Knot should be in there, of course. And in this format, blue and black are probably the best colors to pair with the Devoid theme. So I'm going to try to play all the blue cards I can. I think Cultivator Drone is another way to ramp and cast the... Yeah, I guess we could take down the Walker as well, since it's on theme. We have Negate, which is playable. We have double containment membranes. I'm going to group them separately so you can see creatures versus spells. And I'll wait with the... We have some more potential playables, but I'm just going to start with the removal spells and the colorless Devoid spells. And I would like to pair it with black just to see how it looks. So I'm going to put down some black cards. Okay, so I've added some black cards and I see that, okay, now we have 19 playables. That's a bit few. How will it look if I put in some more, I guess, playable cards? Maybe Unity of Purpose. Maybe I play a Grip of the Royal. Might throw in a Sweep Away just to have a deck. And now we have 22 playables. And then, okay, so we saw we have had a lot of colorless cards. We know that the Devoid cards work well with blue and black, even though our blue and black piles weren't full of matching cards. We have at least found some of them, and this might be one example of a deck from this pool. Might not be the best. So if you have time, now I think looking at an alternative is the way to go. So maybe just I mean on Magic Online you can of course save the deck and build another one, but even in other sealed events you could put the cards aside and try to build an alternative deck. You could even sleeve double decks and sideboard into the other one if you're facing a bad matchup. So I'm just going to try an alternative here to show that there could potentially be a better deck here, even though I wanted to start with the colorless cards. And now I just save the other deck so we can look at it later, and I'm just going to build an alternative a bit quickly here, just so you can see that there could be at least 2 decks. There can be more in a regular sealed pool. So just because I know we have some Bobs in white and we have a lot of red cards, I might just try to go and we have seen some alleys, so I might just try to throw together an alley deck and see how that looks, and then in the end I will try to compare them and see which one I think should be my primary deck. Okay, so I threw in all the alleys and or aggro cards in white and red, and I have about 19 playables as it look, which is a bit short, and the curve is, we don't have that much 3-drops. Removal wise we have the sheer drop, touch and devour, so that looks pretty good. A few combat tricks, and here you could either go see if, okay, what can we put in from the red, maybe another 2-drop, maybe, you could maybe, okay, go very aggro, put in a 2-drop, put in another 2-drop, try to move up to 23 playables. Would be nice with more 3-drops. You could also, since we have a double land, and since it's you might have now we only have Crumbling Vestige, but you might have other double lands or things to fix your mana, then you might move out the non-allies and try to also play black, since we had like a healer, the Soothsayer, the Chain Mages, Envoy and stuff. So maybe there was argument for playing Mardu allies or something in this sealed pool. If we had very good mana, maybe 1 or 2 of those, and the other splashable cards, then we might play all the allies from red, white and black, for example, just to have the cohort going on, the Munda being really good and always have a friend to tap with, the Chain Mage can do damage, and so on. So yeah, maybe just for the sake of the argument, let's say I had very good mana, maybe a deck could look, an alternative to the Go Big deck could be just an Mardu aggro alley deck. And I'm just going to throw in some lands and pretend that we have perfect mana, and maybe I just save this as my alternative. And now we have found 2 decks in this pool, so then it's just deciding which deck looks best, or maybe if you're in that mood, just which deck looks more fun. Maybe you are into ramping into big stuff and playing cool cards like Thought-Knots here. Maybe the blue-black Devoid deck is your starting point. And if you play grindy games then against other grindy opponents, you might just switch to the aggro deck. And if you're more into aggro decks and you actually have the mana and the cards to support a low curve, good removal and good combat tricks, go with that one. And if you're playing Sealed Leagues online, you can save how many decks you want, as many decks as you want, and you can switch sideboard between them during a round, and you can also switch primary deck between rounds. So I think that's pretty cool, and it's a good way to practice Sealed. Yeah, so hopefully this little tutorial was good for you if you're new to Sealed. And if I had more time, I would tune the decks even more. Now I just put them in a bit fast, but it's just for the purpose of showing how you can work with sealed decks. So as a summary, I try to start to look at the rares and the other bomb cards, just to see what pulls you into different directions. Then look at the depth of each color within the pool which sometimes you don't have a bomb in a color, but you have a lot of good playables, and then you might then it might be correct to actually play that color and leave bombs out. But mostly, if you can and have the mana to support it, you want to splash or enable playing as many bombs as you can, because it's usually a slow format, and therefore if you play a bomb and your opponent cannot handle it, it might bring you to victory. Yeah, and as I said, it is possible to play aggro decks in Sealed as well, even though they don't come together as often as the grindy decks. But sometimes you can just open a pool with a lot of good 2 and 3 drops, good early removal, and some curve toppers to finish your opponent off, and then it might be correct to go for that strategy. Yeah, see you later for gameplay videos and more tutorials. Bye bye!